She pinned me down, sunk her long, freezing, cold fingers into my neck and squeezed like a maniac. All the while she sat there howling with laughter, her face alight with the pleasure she was extracting from my sheer hell. This is a horrifying account from a real-life victim of a horrendous phenomenon known as night terrors, a condition that plagues people when they are trying to fall asleep. And more often than not, this is when the sufferer will be introduced to the infamous Night Hag. We have explored sleep paralysis and the Night Hag previously, but since we uploaded the first video, we have been contacted by many current and past victims of this venomous creature, and we felt compelled to revisit, interviewing 2 sufferers who have kindly given their time and provided very real and absolutely petrifying accounts. Although completely dissimilar people in terms of personality, their cases prove eerily similar. We have changed some names, but their stories are all genuine. Our first report came courtesy of Jamie, a driving instructor from Ipswich, Britain. I was 23 when I saw her for the first time. It's really weird, as at the time I was in the best place mentally I'd been in my life. So anyone who reckons it's an anxiety-related trauma thing, I'm afraid I just don't subscribe to that theory. I'd been working all day that particular Saturday, and by the time I got in, I was knackered. I'm self-employed, so things like holidays and weekends are non-existent in my world. I got home to my little one-bed flat and just zonked out for an hour on the couch. I couldn't keep my eyes open and had been forced to cancel seeing friends that night due to my exhaustion. It's important to add, everyone works hard. This wasn't something new to me, and certainly to most people I know. I must have been out cold asleep for 20 minutes? When I was suddenly very aware of an old woman running through the lounge room door. She was in fits of laughter. Really hysterical laughter. She ran round to the back of the couch behind me and then presented herself in front of me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. For the first time in my life, I felt paralysed with fear as I knew I'd locked the front door. "You're in the wrong flat," I said. I felt about 4 years old, talking to the scary teacher that everyone's afraid of. She stopped for a brief second to listen to me speak and then began screeching with laughter once more. I couldn't move. I wanted to believe this was a legitimate mistake, that some nutty old lady had managed to let herself into my place, but I'm not a fool, and it wasn't possible, and I bloody well knew it. All the way through this, I couldn't move a muscle. She got closer to me as I lay powerless to budge. She climbed astride my paralysed body and began choking me with these intensely cold hands. They were more like claws, actually, and her face. My God, the determination on her face scared me so much that my heart was thumping that hard I could hear it and was convinced I was dying. She squeezed, and in doing so, she weighed down on my collarbone with the pressure, despite her slight frame. I mean, she must have been 6 stone wringing wet, but she had this insane strength, which made things even more horrible. After she went, it hurt across my body for days. A real injury like when I used to play rugby. It honestly hurt. She had these eyes. They were mad. Dark and perverted. She was haggard with shriveled skin like a dried apricot, so creep-like and unnerving. She was 100% getting off on hurting me, causing me suffering. I was choking and couldn't fight back. I don't know how long she was there for, but when she left, she just got up and ran back through the door as quick as she arrived. But she paused to look back at me, turning me stone cold, to ice almost. I remained unable to move for what seemed like hours. As soon as I was able, I grabbed my keys and ran like the wind to my uncle's, where I stayed for a few nights to come to terms with what had happened. As the days went by, I reasoned, with my uncle Ronnie's help, that it must have been a symptom of an underlying worry, even though I can hand on heart say that I wasn't worried about a thing at the time. I'm not a natural worrier. In fact, People say if I was any calmer, I'd be lying down all the time. So, as you can imagine, it was a big ask for me to get my head around this and accept it as a factor of stress. On the Wednesday, I returned home to my flat and was relieved to find everything was okay, save for the smell of turned milk lingering in the air. Or so I thought. That night, it happened again. She came back. As before, I couldn't move. She crawled, almost slithering across my bedroom floor, initially in total silence, before climbing up my bed and squealing with high-pitched laughter at my face, shaking my head, praying, begging her to go away. She crawled along ever closer, before stopping still for a brief second before fully lunging directly on top of me again, choking me for a second time. This look of hatred, twisted determination all over her wrinkled, nasty face. I couldn't fight, and I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. It hurt. It bloody caned my body. She eventually got off of me and started running around the room, dancing. It was, to say the least, the most horrible thing I'd ever seen. She turned around and had her back to me for a bit. I willed her to piss off out the door, but she didn't. She began slowly turning back around to me and... what the hell? She had my beloved pet dog Barney in her arms. Barney had been dead for 4 years and not a day went by where I didn't miss him. I wanted to shout, to kill her even. How the hell did she manage this? I couldn't so much as wiggle my fingers, so what could I do? She carried Barney over to me. It was him. He recognised me and was trying desperately to get across to me, but she held him in a vice-like grip, stroking him so he couldn't. It was at this point I wanted to just die. I couldn't take any more. My dead dog is here in front of me with this hag thing. It was all far, far too much to take. My poor body was swimming in sweat, like someone had lobbed 3 or 4 buckets of warm water over me, and yet I was freezing cold. She was there. Barney was there. She lowered my dog down, and he was on the bed. He ran to me in the way he always did, and as soon as he reached me, he disappeared completely, and so did she. I was a wreck. I moved out of the flat and never looked back. I haven't seen her since, and I hope to God I never do again. That wicked thing has made me doubt everything I thought I knew, and I hope to high heaven she hasn't got my dog. It's hard to imagine a more frightening spectre, especially when it involves loved ones from your past. But she does appear to unfortunate souls the world over. Our next account comes courtesy of Amanda, a receptionist from Newcastle, Great Britain. I've always been a bit of an anxious person. I guess I'm the kind of woman who worries about worrying, but I still don't get why this thing chose me. It all started when I was 19. I was living at home with Mum, Dad and my sisters when the Night Hag first started visiting. I remember the very first time I saw her. It was the night before my 19th birthday, and I'd gone to bed at 10 as we were all going out the next day to celebrate at a theme park, so an early start it was. I nodded off pretty quickly, excited about what the next day had in store. I was conscious of my alarm clock ticking away next to me, when suddenly, unexpectedly, my door swung open. Assuming it was one of my sisters messing about or coming to swipe my hair rollers, I whispered, "I'm in bed." But there was no reply back. Seconds later, I lay petrified to the bed as an old woman, hag-like and dressed in a raggy old dress and headscarf, came galloping into my room. How the hell did she get in? Who bloody let her in? Was my initial thought as she circled my bed as though I were prey. I remember she didn't stop laughing throughout. This howl, high-pitched and hellish, is the only way to describe it. She ran at me. I couldn't move at all. She jumped on the bed and I felt her weight on top of me. She suddenly stopped laughing to study my face. Seemingly in detail, these dark, soulless eyes, they burned into me as she scanned me, deciding on what to torture me with next. I could see it in her face. She was loving every minute of this. I wanted to scream, of course, but I couldn't do anything, deactivated in every way. She pushed my nose in a contemptuous, nasty way, as though I were nothing. Vermin, a mere plaything to her. She then began punching me in the face. I felt the blows and saw the pleasure in her face as she did so. She screamed with laughter and ecstasy as I lay there motionless. I felt violated. She kept hitting me with such violence, immense force, not caring where she hit or touched me. She punched my breasts, kneed me in the hips. It really hurt. I could feel her bones pressing into mine. It was beyond terror. I didn't think anything like this could ever be real. She continued to torture me for ages. I was sweating like mad. My hair was stuck to my face. Before she left, she licked my face and flicked my cheek with utter disgust. I couldn't believe it. I'd been attacked and I couldn't do a sodding thing about it. She danced out of the room, still laughing, having had her fill of my peril. I didn't get it. How did nobody else in the house hear her? Was she now going to do the same to the rest of my family? I forced my body back into gear and ran to the hallway shouting for my family, who came running out to me. I must have frightened them to death. I was hysterical and could barely utter a word, but somehow I managed to blurt out what happened. Everyone except Dad put it down to my anxiety, but I could tell Dad wasn't convinced. After much persuading, Dad confessed he'd seen her too, when he was 9 or 10. I felt mixed emotions, relieved that I wasn't alone, but on the other hand, overwhelming terror as I knew she'd come back. My birthday was predictably ruined, eclipsed by her. I couldn't go out because I hurt and ached too much. All I wanted was to be at home on the sofa with the family around for comfort, just in case she came back. But she didn't. It was 4 weeks or so after her awful visit she returned. I was awoken at around 2 that morning, desperate for the toilet. On my way back to my room, I passed the extension roof, a large window on the landing, nothing out of the ordinary at all, until she appeared at the window. I stood on the landing, frozen, glued to the spot as I was forced to watch her laughing as she twirled around, dancing in the same ways she had prior. She scratched at the glass and mouthed at me to shh, as if I had a choice. She continued her bizarre dancing, petrifying me again in the process. I don't remember any more of it. The next morning, I was woken by my concerned mum, who discovered me slumped in a heap against the wall. The Night Hag is real. She does beyond doubt exist, and I've seen her, and I continue to see her to this day. She's ruined my life and shattered my sleep. 2 horrendous examples of the hideous Night Hag's vile capabilities indeed. She really does appear to revel in poisoning innocent people's lives, and until more is understood about this ungodly spectre, she seems likely to continue, undisturbed on her spree of hate. But we leave you with this one question. How does she choose her victims? And just what is it that makes them so susceptible to this magnificently evil predator? Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, but all the while, don't have nightmares.